I'd like to continue my discussion of Undoing the Knots, and we are concluding chapter 2 of that book and journeying into chapter 3. And at this point, we've seen Maureen O'Connell, who is describing her family's history. We've seen how that history was kind of intertwined with a section of Pennsylvania that very much was on the border, and so a lot of freed slaves came into that area. But very interesting, Maureen points out that there was no involvement that she could find of priests or lay Catholics in the Underground Railroad. So here is this movement to bring freedom to black slaves. And where is the Catholic participation in it? Maureen says, there doesn't seem to be any. I can't find any records of anybody in my family or other Catholics in the area or priests advocating for the Underground Railroad or helping those slaves achieve their freedom. It could be that they were scared of repercussions, whatever the reason might be, but no involvement. And you look back upon that and you say, that's kind of strange. Why wouldn't Catholics uh, be more involved in helping these slaves achieve their freedom? Her conclusion is that Catholics really did not at this time support black flourishing. So if black people were going to do well, it wasn't going to be with the assistance, unfortunately, of any Catholics. She feels that it was to dispossess black Americans while securing benefits for whites. So oftentimes, the way it seems to be framed is, well, if black people do well, maybe we as white people will not do as well at this time. So let's not support the blacks too much. Let's kind of look out for our own interest, establish our own sense of community, our own institutions. Let us kind of look out for ourselves and black people, these freed slaves, and let's just kind of ignore them and leave them more or less to their own because, again, they're concerned about their own survival and how well they will do. So that seems to be the focus. And the conclusion she draws from this at the end of that second chapter is that our family really did not become white Catholics. We became anti-black Catholics. And so there's a real sense of animus towards the black community. And to be a Catholic was to be a white Catholic at this time. And you can see as she looks back over her family history, she's saying, well, how would this maybe affect me even today? How did this impact where I am in terms of my life's journey? She goes into next chapter 3, which she calls grafting, and the parish that was involved was St. Agnes Parish. And the person in the family that she's describing in this chapter is Maurice Connell. And Maurice emigrated from Ireland, and there were very poor conditions in Ireland at this time. He emigrated in 1842. And of course, you're dealing with famine, dealing with conditions where a lot of people were literally starving to death, very much involved with very poor conditions, conditions of blight, terrible scenes in Ireland, and so people emigrating. And we see this as a continual part of Irish history, of so many people leaving Ireland, unfortunately. Now, it's interesting at this time, she points out, looking at the Irish picture, that the great Irish liberator, Daniel O'Connell, much celebrated in Ireland for his stance of confronting the British and trying to bring more freedom to the Irish, he condemned slavery, and he urged the Irish in America to side with the abolitionists. We felt it was very important for those Irish who had emigrated to America to take a firm stand on this and say, no more slavery. Slavery is terrible. Well, look what you're doing to the dignity of the human person. You have difficult conditions here in Ireland, and it's somewhat like a slavery in Ireland, the way we are being oppressed. We want to make sure that wherever we go, wherever we emigrate, there was no oppression for any people. So that was his message. Unfortunately, his message was not very well received by the Irish in America. There doesn't seem to be any groundswell of people supporting this position, unfortunately. Frederick Douglass, the great black spokesperson, did visit Ireland, and he attacked the conditions of oppression in Ireland, liking it very much to slavery in the United States. So what's remarkable is here you have two extraordinary figures at this time. One in terms of Irish history, Daniel O'Connell, one in terms of American history, Frederick Douglass, both really advocating for the same thing, saying, wait a minute, you have a system of oppression here in Ireland, it's got to stop. It's like slavery. And Daniel O'Connell saying, look at this, we can't allow oppression in America, where we emigrate. Look what we're experiencing here in Ireland. So the commonality there is something that's very striking, and Maureen points it out very well in this chapter of her Undoing the Knots. And Douglass points out some of the parallels with the Black Irish restrictions. There were very much important strictures in terms of owning land, how much land you could own. The Irish, their land was, taken away in terrible conditions in terms of trying to get land and own land and own property. The right to vote. This, again, very much restricted, not only, of course, in America for blacks, but in Ireland for the Irish. And then the need for papers, the importance of having papers to prove that you are a free person and not a slave or an indentured worker. You needed those papers. They were extremely important. So this was true not only in America, but in Ireland. So interesting how these histories commingle together. Douglass said that when the Irish come to America, they're taught to hate the Negro. They're taught that the Negro will take their bread. Prejudice against color is most rampant in Philadelphia. So Douglass pointed out, the Irish here, I see the oppression, but it's a different story. When they come to America, they're very anti-Negro. They're against the blacks when they come to America. And why is that? Again, it's the struggle for survival, the struggle to get work, the struggle to support your family. The thought was, well, if we have equality for the blacks, maybe they'll take my job. Maybe I won't be able to support my family. So again, it's this pitting of the Irish against the blacks, and it creates a tremendous hatred, and it becomes very rampant. And Douglass points out no more rampant than in Philadelphia, the supposed home and birthplace of liberty. The Irish Catholics at this time also were considered a threat to American democracy. You have that underlying theme. The thought was, well, look at them. Are they going to be more loyal to a pope, to a foreign power, or are they going to function well in our American democracy? And there were many groups who were very suspicious of the Irish. They didn't like the Irish. They felt the Irish were drunkards, and they were lazy, and they just really had this animus towards the Irish, unfortunately. And the Irish seem to have a similar sense of hatred for the blacks. And Maureen's going to unpack this as we move through Undoing the Knots.